Aussie welterweight Jack Della Maddalena has been making waves recently, and given the fact that he shares the same management company as one Conor McGregor, some have suggested that he could actually go on to emulate the Irish superstar. Jack currently fights in the UFC's welterweight division and has big plans going forward. Today, we are discussing how he has been tipped to follow in McGregor's footsteps and bag a UFC title. Stay tuned. First up, who is Jack Della Maddalena? Well, if you haven't heard of the Australian mixed martial artist, don't worry. He has only fought twice in the UFC so far and is currently unranked, but is in a good position given the fact he is still only 25 years old. Della Maddalena hails from Perth in Western Australia, turning pro after amassing only 2 amateur fights. However, he won both by unanimous decision and submission before turning professional back in 2016. But the start to his professional career didn't exactly go to plan, as he recorded back-to-back losses, one via TKO and the other via rear naked choke submission. However, the young fighter, who was still only 19 at the time, believed in himself and the skills he possessed and got straight back on the horse, and has gone his last 12 fights unbeaten since. He also avenged one of those early losses, knocking out the man who gave him his first ever loss, Alden Bates. Incidentally, that was the fight that prompted UFC bosses to offer the welterweight fighter a chance on Dana White's Contender Series, and he did not disappoint. He got the decision victory, and along with that came a UFC contract, and he has not disappointed since. His first 2 UFC fights provided 2 stoppages, with TKOs via punches in both, to cement Della Maddalena's status as one of the most promising prospects in the welterweight division. So, how far can he go? Let's see. Well, pretty far if his coach is to be believed. He recently bagged his second UFC win as he appeared as the first fight on the Teixeira v Prohaska light heavyweight title fight card at UFC 275, with his coach warning before the fight he would go on to do more than even Tim Tszyu. Of course, Della Maddalena is represented by the same management company as McGregor, Paradigm, who also take care of middleweight King Israel Adesanya, and there is a ton of hype behind him, as Dana has already spoken about how special he is, and he backed up the hype at UFC 275, finishing opponent Ramazan Emeev in the very first round. And this win will probably put the Aussie in prime contention for a spot at the much-talked-about Australian UFC card, which has been suggested for early next year. Similar to Chechen warrior Khamzat Chimaev, Della Maddalena has only seen a few minutes of action so far in his UFC career, but he comes with plenty of hype, with his coach Ben Vickers calling him the future of Australian fighting for sure. Echoing White's sentiments that his student is special, Vickers also claimed that Della Maddalena is as talented as anyone he's seen in the sport over his 20 years as a coach. He went on to claim that Jack will win a UFC title and explained that a fighter like him, they just come along sometimes. You can't explain it. What do you make of Vickers' words? So what else did Coach Vickers say? Stay tuned to find out. Vickers, who runs the MMA clinic in Perth, revealed how Jack just loves to render people unconscious because he has no interest in staying there any longer than he has to be. Vickers also suggested that Della Maddalena likes to be in lopsided beatdowns, but of course, always chasing the crazy knockout could come back to haunt him if he gets clipped. It only takes a second after all. Vickers, who was speaking before his pupil's last fight at 175, explained that although it was a big test for him, he is a nightmare for every opponent due to his stamina and bulletproof mind, which of course proved to be true. Vickers also spoke of how he would like to see Jack climb the ranks as quickly as possible to try and put himself in the top 15 of the welterweight division as an early Christmas present to himself. Before fighting Emeev, who comes from that fabled Dagestani wrestling background, Jack had said he wanted to test himself against that style, which turned out pretty well for him. He said that the Dagestani style, which Khabib made so famous, is the dominant style of fighting at the moment, before explaining that it was a great test for him, a test which he passed with flying colors. Who would you like to see Della Maddalena out against next time out? Let us know below. Next up, Jack has been speaking of his smashed nose. Stay with us. MMA fans who are familiar with Jack Della Maddalena will also be familiar with his misshaped nose. I mean, it comes with the territory, right? And speaking on Ariel Helwani's MMA Hour podcast recently, Jack explained that his nose got smashed in his second MMA fight after getting kneed in the face. The fight in question and the injury saw Maddalena turn his career around instantly, initiating his 12-fight win streak off the back of it, and Ben Vickers, his coach, was also instrumental in his win streak, as the welterweight made a pact with him to never lose again. He said, "I lost my first fight and then went into another fight and had lost 2 fights. My coach wasn't there the second time around, but we spoke on the phone. We thought I was better than being a 0-2 fighter, and we made that pact to get to 10-2. After speaking of the doubts that crept into his mind after those first couple of defeats, he even claimed he might not be where he is today if he had lost his third pro fight, but he did win it, and the rest, as they say, is history. Helwani then moved the conversation on to Jack's nose, with the Aussie saying, "I am going to get it fixed one day, but I thought, what's the point of getting it fixed now when my job is to get punched in it? But I will get it fixed one day." True that. We're talking about his approach to choosing his opponent opponents now. Don't go anywhere. As we know, early on in your fighting career, you fight who you get given, and Jack Della Maddalena has referenced one Sean O'Malley when speaking of the approach he doesn't want to take. Although he did acknowledge that there is logic in O'Malley's approach of not fighting higher-ranked opponents before he gets a pay bump, he admitted it wasn't for him. Maddalena went on to say that his competitive edge won't let him take this route through his early career, saying that he wants to fight the best person I possibly can at that time. He also said, "I'm going to see how it goes. Let it fall naturally. But if I get the option, I'm always going to try to take the toughest fight I can at that time." Fair enough. And Jack went on to suggest that he does want to be paid for fighting better talent, but he also wants to get up the rankings as soon as possible. The UFC clearly have faith in the Aussie, and his recent spot on the main card in just his second appearance in the promotion was evidence of this. And the man himself finished by saying, "I think you can be protected in the game and just fight people who are going to be good for your style, but I want to fight everyone. I'm going to fight a wrestler at some stage, so I might as well fight a wrestler early." What do you make of this attitude? And finally, Jack has given his opinion on his near future. As you will often hear in post-fight interviews, many fighters don't care who they fight next, and Jack Della Maddalena is one of those guys. However, he is a little different, as he has claimed that he wants his next fight to be a challenge, alluding to the fact that if you're not challenging yourself, you're going backwards. Speaking after his first-round destruction of Dagestani Emeev, Jack told reporters that his win was awesome because no one had ever managed to stop the wrestler before. He then explained that that was the goal, and to be able to get that goal, it's a goal accomplished. On to the next. When asked about his plans for the rest of the year, the rising star explained that he wants to fight 4 times this year, which means 2 more outings before the end of December. He said, "I think that's still well within the realm of possibility. So yeah, 4 fights. No real date in particular, whenever." And as for an opponent, he said he is down for the challenge before claiming that he is ready to go with anyone who will pose a threat. What do you make of all this? As always, thanks for joining us today, and remember to stop by again next time for some more fun and games. And why not subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on more great bits and pieces in the future. Bye guys!